creating dramatic flash portraits like these can be a bit intimidating. So in this video, I want to break the process down into a simple 4-step framework that, well, regardless of what level of photographer you are, it's going to make the entire process easy peasy. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about the gear. So for this technique, you need at least one off-camera flash, and we're gonna pair it with a MagGrid 2 as well as a MagSphere 2. On top of that, I'll give a bonus technique at the very end where we incorporate a second flash, so that's kind of optional just for a bit of a kicker, and for that, we'll probably end up using a grid or the MagSnoot 2 as well. Let's talk about the framework. The framework that we use for shooting with flash, well, we call it CAMP. It stands for Composition, Ambient Light, Modify, then Photograph. Let's start first with composition. Composition means before you set up your lights, before you worry about placing your couple, all that stuff, I want you to think, what kind of shot do you actually want to create? So here, I really love the architecture of this building. We're here on Chapman campus. I'm gonna take just kind of a little test shot just to get an idea of the overall composition. So what I'm looking at, the most interesting part of this frame to me is kind of the top of this building, right about here. And I'm shooting, by the way, with just my Canon R5. It's a 28-70, so really any zoom lens or prime lens, whatever you want to use in this case, is totally fine. With the composition roughly dialed in, I'm ready to go to step 2. That's going to be my ambient light exposure. Following this process makes everything so simple. I think as photographers, we often make things more difficult just because we try to combine everything into one step. I'm going to set up the lights, I'm going to get them posed, I'm going to do everything in one step, and it makes it difficult. Here, when I set up my ambient light exposure, I'm just thinking of intention. If we are going for something that's dramatic, then we're gonna set the ambient exposure to be darker. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to 1/200 of a second, because that's my flash sync speed, low ISO, and we'll go to around f11. Now right there, I get this exposure where it's dark and it's dramatic. Now when the ambient light is darker, here's a simple rule. You're gonna pump the flash power up. So when you wanna go dramatic, ambient light goes down, flash power goes up. When you want to go with something more natural, then your ambient light comes up and your flash power goes down. But this is where I want to be. The next step is I need to modify the light. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and actually place our couple. So this is Shannon and Steven. Come on out, guys. This is our lovely couple of the day. Actually, past client of ours who were down to do this photo shoot. Okay. So what we're gonna do is, I kind of want to go with a symmetrical composition just to kind of sort of match this scene and the vibe that we already have. So Shannon, I'm thinking that you're gonna give me your back. So kind of like pose, yes, almost like facing that side. What I'm gonna have her do is actually turn over so she looks over the left shoulder. And Steven, you're gonna stand a little bit back and then hold her hand on that side. That's perfect, right hand in the pocket. Being that they're past client, they already know the posing and everything, they're rock solid. So I'm thinking this, right now the sun is positioned off to that side, we're getting kind of a nice sort of kicker on the left side of them. What I'm gonna do is actually make my main light come from this side. So I'm gonna fire that primary flash right into Shannon's face on this side, and I'm gonna shoot straight on. Okay, so for this, I have an 8200 placed on a stand. This is on the MagShoot 2 with the MagGrid 2 placed on there, but I'm leaving it bare for just a moment because I want you to see what it looks like without any modification. I'm gonna go ahead and place this about right here, and I'm gonna ask Shannon to actually look down and towards where she's going to kind of be looking. And I'll place the flash right about where I can see that it's gonna be a Rembrandt light. So if you wanna know where that is, come to my angle. Once she's looking where she should be looking, a Rembrandt is basically gonna give me, well, I should be able to see the far side. So I'm gonna show you. The flash should be able to see the far side of the cheek right here. So kind of put your subject into position and then have them move with their face and then find the angle in the flash that gets you that Rembrandt light, which is gonna be right about here. That's perfect. I'm also gonna make sure that it's coming a little bit high to low, just so it matches that natural angle of the sun. And that looks fantastic. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a test shot. Because it's bright, we're dealing with kind of midday sun right now, I usually just leave the flash power turned all the way up to full power, which is gonna give me 200 watt seconds of light. All right, Shannon, scoot this way a little bit. And then Steven, scoot this way a little bit. I love that. Now already, I feel like I have something that's usable right now. But what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna grab the MagGrid 2 as well as the MagSphere 2, and we're gonna pop it on. And I'm gonna go one step at a time. So the grid first is gonna basically control light spill. So less of that light is gonna end up on Steven, right? The sphere is gonna soften up that light a little bit. So let's go ahead and pop this and get an idea. Beautiful. We can see how it just controlled a little bit of that light, and the sphere is just going to make sure that it's a little bit softer. It's gonna be just a bit more diffused. It's still gonna be a hard edged light because it's a small light source, right? It's just a slightly more diffused light source, which is nice when you're working midday, when it's bright and hot outside, because your subjects can get a little bit of shine to them, and that diffusion kind of eliminates a little bit of that, or at least reduces it. Perfect. I love that. You can see there's quite a big difference. Notice that each one of these, every time I add one of those modifiers, it is gonna cut down the amount of light. So I might need to make a tiny bit of adjustment in my overall exposure, maybe going down to like F9, just to get them a little bit brighter and get the scene a little bit brighter. That looks awesome. I'm cropping on this shot, kind of like right where the shins are, so I can see that taper of the dress, and it looks absolutely awesome. Now, here is the place where we could stop. We could stop here, and we already have a really great shot. And by the way, I have this position just because of the pose, right? So you can switch up the pose and move the angle however you'd like. But I kind of like this shot. I like it because it's not one of the shots that we typically think of, and it really does a beautiful job of showing off the back of the dress, which is something we often forget to photograph. So what I'm gonna do now is, here's the bonus piece. I have a second 8200, and what I'd like to do is place it off to this right side to add a little bit of a kicker. See, if we look closely at this image, you'll notice that on the shadow side, like on Steven's face, it actually gets kind of dark and it sort of blends in with the background. So a really cool bonus technique is to add a second light. And again, if you want more light control, put a grid on that light, and we're gonna angle it towards them from the back side. So I'll show you guys. So I've already got my MagGrid 2 right on here. We're gonna go ahead and bring this guy right onto this side, and we're gonna aim it towards our couple. I'm not too worried about the height of this flash because it's really acting more of like a rim light than anything. I'm gonna leave that rim light at full power as well, because again, when in the sun, 1/1. Beautiful, guys. I love that. Now, with that kicker right on the back side, you can see that if we compare it to that before shot, it just kind of lifts the face out. It creates more edging in the body. And we get that edging both on Steven and both on the backside of Shannon, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now I'm gonna show you one little trick here. So with that flash setup, right, what if you wanna do a full length shot? Well, I do have my assistant here, and you could do this without an assistant, but it's easier if you have him with. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna place the train, and everything else is good in the scene, but what I gotta do is remove that light so I can get a plate shot. Now, the plate is just the second shot of the image with the exact same composition and everything with that flash removed. I'm gonna show you exactly how it's done. Then all we do is we nix it in Photoshop, and it takes like 10 seconds. So what you're gonna do now is, with my full length composition, so this is the composition right here, I'm gonna have them do little soft smiles, and I framed the second flash out. The first one is still in the shot, right? So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna tell my assistant, so Rick, when I get the shot, you're gonna take that flash out. So ready? Grab the flash, here we go, 1, 2, and turn it away, and second shot. Okay, so basically all we did was we took that shot with light, and then we took the same shot without the light. So this is our plate shot. I actually did this handheld. I do this handheld all the time. It's ideal if you do this on a tripod, but oftentimes if you're working under the kind of time constraints of a wedding, you might not have time to put the tripod down. So just make sure it's steady, make sure that you have the same composition on both. All we're gonna do, open this up in Photoshop, align the layers, and it's as simple as just masking that standout. It takes less than 10 seconds and you're done. You've got a wide angle shot of the same exact scene. So once you get your light set up, don't just move on to the next shot, right? Once you get that light set up, change your poses, move your angle, get some different shots, get some wide, some medium, some tight shots, and then move to the next scene. I hope you all enjoy the tutorial. We're gonna link up all the gear that we use in the description of the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I get a lot of my ideas for future videos from those comments, and I'll see you guys next time.